In 1946, while the world was still counting its dead from World War II, the United States quietly approached Denmark with an offer that sounded unreal. $100 million in gold in exchange for Greenland. No press conference, no public debate, just a discreet proposal between governments. Denmark refused. At the time, the refusal barely registered globally. Greenland was distant, frozen, and irrelevant to most people. The matter faded into obscurity, but it never faded in Washington. In 2019, the idea returned, this time not in whispers but in headlines. The President of the United States publicly suggested buying Greenland. Denmark called the proposal absurd. The American president canceled a state visit in response. Commentators laughed. Late-night comedians mocked it. The world treated it as a joke, but it wasn't, and now the language has changed again. This is no longer about real estate. It is about necessity, leverage, and power. So the real question isn't why this idea keeps resurfacing. The real question is this: why does the most powerful country on Earth keep trying to acquire a frozen island with just 56,000 people? Because Greenland is not ice. It is position. It is leverage. In April 1946, American military strategists were staring at maps with a new kind of fear. World War II had ended, but peace was already dissolving. The Soviet Union was no longer an ally. It was a rival, and soon an enemy. Nuclear weapons had changed warfare forever, and American planners understood something terrifying. The shortest path for Soviet bombers to reach American cities was not across oceans, it was over the Arctic. Draw a straight line from Moscow to New York, it passes directly over Greenland. Greenland suddenly became the front door to North America. At the time, Greenland belonged to Denmark, a small country devastated by Nazi occupation. During the war, the United States had already occupied Greenland with Danish permission to prevent Nazi forces from using it. American forces built airstrips, weather stations, and infrastructure. When the war ended, American planners didn't want to leave. Secretary of State James Burns made the offer. $100 million in gold, roughly $1.5 billion in today's money. For a war-shattered nation, it was enormous. Denmark refused anyway. Greenland had been Danish territory for over 2 centuries. Selling it felt like selling history, identity, and sovereignty. The offer was perceived as insulting. But refusal didn't end American interest. It changed strategy. If the United States couldn't buy Greenland, it would embed itself inside it. In 1959, American engineers began constructing Camp Century in northwestern Greenland. Officially, it was a scientific research station. The cover story was climate research, ice cores, and Arctic engineering. Denmark approved the project, but beneath that cover was something far more dangerous: Project Iceworm. The real plan was to hide 600 nuclear missiles beneath the Greenland ice sheet. Engineers envisioned thousands of miles of tunnels carved into the ice, connected by underground rail systems. Nuclear missiles would move constantly through this frozen labyrinth, impossible for Soviet satellites to track. If nuclear war came, America could launch a devastating strike from directly beneath the Arctic. Camp Century was the prototype: a city under the ice, living quarters, a hospital, a chapel, a barbershop, a portable nuclear reactor supplied power. For a brief moment, it worked. Then reality intervened. The Greenland ice sheet moves, it shifts, compresses, and deforms. Tunnels that were perfectly straight in 1960 twisted and collapsed within years. Walls buckled, ceilings caved in. The nuclear reactor had to be removed. By 1967, Camp Century was abandoned. It was left behind with nuclear waste, toxic chemicals, and radioactive material buried under ice that would one day melt. Denmark wasn't told the truth until decades later. When the truth emerged, Danish officials were furious. But there was nothing they could do. America was too powerful, and America was still there. Even without Project Iceworm, the United States never relinquished Greenland. Thule Air Base, built in 1951, became one of the most important military installations on Earth, located just 950 miles from the North Pole. Thule sits directly beneath the polar route that Russian missiles would take toward America. Its radar systems detect launches within minutes. Its runways can handle the largest military aircraft. During the Cold War, Thule was a cornerstone of America's early warning nuclear defense. Today, it operates as part of the U.S. Space Force's missile detection network, tracking Russian and Chinese launches. Technically, Thule is on Danish soil. Practically, it is American territory. American soldiers, American equipment, American command. Danish oversight is minimal. For decades, this arrangement depended on Danish consent. But what if that consent could be bypassed entirely? For a brief moment after the Cold War, Greenland seemed less important. Then the Arctic began to change faster than anywhere else on Earth. Permanent ice vanished. Sea routes that had been frozen for thousands of years began to open. The Arctic Ocean was no longer impassable. This changed global trade overnight. The Northern Sea route along Russia's coast cuts weeks off shipping between Asia and Europe. The Northwest Passage through Canada could soon be navigable year-round. Control of the Arctic means control of future trade arteries. Beneath the ice lies something even more valuable. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, the Arctic holds 13% of the world's undiscovered oil, 30% of its undiscovered natural gas, and vast deposits of rare earth minerals. These resources were always there. They were just unreachable. Now, they are not. Greenland's geology is extraordinary. The island contains massive deposits of rare earth elements essential for smartphones, electric vehicles, wind turbines, and advanced weapon systems. China currently controls around 60% of rare earth mining and 90% of processing. That dominance gives Beijing leverage over Western technology and defense industries. Greenland could break that monopoly. The Kvanefjeld deposit alone is one of the largest rare earth reserves outside China. Greenland also contains uranium, zinc, copper, iron, rubies, and potentially enormous offshore oil and gas reserves. As the ice retreats, mining that was impossible becomes viable. The country that controls Greenland controls access to these resources. Right now, that country is Denmark, a nation of 6 million people with a small military and deep reliance on American protection. A nation that has already said no. Trump canceled a state visit in response. He was not joking. Behind the spectacle, the Pentagon had already been studying Arctic strategy. Intelligence agencies had already assessed Greenland's resources. Diplomats had already explored influence campaigns. Trump said out loud what American strategists had been thinking quietly for years. Greenland was too valuable to leave in Danish hands. Greenland is not just a Danish possession. It has its own parliament, its own prime minister, and control over domestic affairs. Denmark handles defense and foreign policy and provides an annual subsidy of about $500 million, roughly half of Greenland's government budget. Many Greenlanders want independence. They are not ethnically Danish. The Inuit population has lived on the island for over 4,000 years. Danish colonization brought disease, cultural destruction, and forced relocations. Independence, however, requires money. Mining could provide it, but mining requires massive investment. Greenland cannot do it alone. Enter the United States. In 2020, the United States opened a consulate in Nuuk. In 2021, American funding flowed into Greenlandic infrastructure. Airports, ports, research stations. American companies invested in mining. American diplomats courted Greenlandic politicians. The strategy was simple. If Greenland couldn't be bought from Denmark, make it dependent on America until it chose America itself. An independent Greenland aligned with Washington would be American in everything but name. Some Greenlanders resist this. They do not want to trade Danish colonialism for American imperialism. Others see America as the only realistic path to independence. The debate is happening now, inside Greenland's parliament and villages. Who are we? Who do we align with? Trump's renewed rhetoric changed everything. He refused to rule out military force. He framed Greenland as a national security necessity. This is unprecedented. Denmark is a founding NATO member. Article 5 states that an attack on one member is an attack on all. But what if the attacker is the United States? If America can threaten Denmark, NATO's foundation cracks. European leaders understand this. Statements of support mean little without force. Europe, without American backing, has limited military power. Denmark cannot stop America militarily. Diplomatically, legally, economically, all avenues favor Washington. Denmark's only leverage is America's reputation. Whether that matters is unclear. America has done this before. Each time, the people involved had limited say. Greenland fits the pattern perfectly. Beyond Greenland, the implications are global. If America can take Greenland because it is valuable, what stops China in Taiwan? Russia in Ukraine? The rules-based order collapses when the rulemaker ignores the rules. Europe is watching. The world is watching. For 80 years, Greenland was too cold to fight over. That era is ending. If you want to understand how power really moves money and how money reshapes history, subscribe to History Behind Money. I'm Alex, and this is the story behind the system.